I'm Tobias from Astralis, and welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. It's a joke-free zone.
Feeling blue about not getting to play for Astralis, Bubzkji? Maybe try Blue Raz. Sour about how it's gone thus far? Well, you know what? How you like them apples? Sour apple. Did you burst onto the scene like when you were with Mad Lions? Strawberry burst for the good old times? If the chances of you playing for Astralis at the next major about as high as Cobblestone coming back in the map pool and us all getting Dragon Lore drops, well, you know what? Maybe Dragon Fruit Punch is the sort of little knock in the head you need to get out of your shell, mate. You know what? At the moment, you probably feel like a bit of a misfit in Astralis. Misfits melon, maybe? Use your fucking melon. Because you know what? When the meta is to no longer have 6 players, well then the meta, man go. Time to go, baby. So, in honour of Bubzkji, played not much over 10% of the maps that Astralis has played since he's been in the team. Why not get 10% off your order of Gamersubs with the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersubs.gg. Now, as referenced in that intro, Bubzkji was one of the hot rising talents of 2020. You go back to when Mad Lions was right on the cusp of becoming potentially a top 10 team, maybe a team that could do some dangerous upsets, when they'd gone from Tricked to becoming Mad Lions or the Mad Lions organisation. Obviously, the high point was winning Flashpoint 1. Arguably, Bubzkji was the MVP of that run. I give it to Fur, but I don't hear anyone who would say it was Bubzkji. He was fantastic in the final, the upper bracket final from what I remember. The last map he played for Mad Lions, though, was on the 26th of June in 2020. On the 31st of July 2020, he joined Astralis. In theory, they weren't the number 1 team in the world at the time, but, you know, the number 1 team in his country, Denmark, one of the greatest teams of all time, the 3-time reigning major winners at that point in time, back to back. This is obviously a team anyone wouldn't want to join this team. And he joined, so the chronology's here, after they'd had Yugi and Snappy as, well, full-time member and standing, depending on which you believe. And Yugi was released the same day that Bubzkji joined. And Esatag, if people remember coming over from what was Heroic before they became FPX, he couldn't join until his contract ended with Heroic, which was officially on the 1st of July. So that was at the beginning of the same month that Bubzkji ended up joining. So basically, you'd already gotten Yugi and Snappy out. You get in Esatag and Bubzkji. You know what? These are like decent enough players. Bubzkji more on the rising talent end. Esatag just sort of a fill player. If now you want to claim, as Astralis did, that you're going for a 6 or a 7-man or maybe even a 10-man roster and making outlandish statements that, you know, all the players would play and they could even potentially do all the roles and we'd try and have someone who could fit every role, implying like IGL and fucking Orpa and stuff would somehow be replaced, which is a ludicrous premise. But here's the thing, it seemed fine initially when Bubzkji joined Astralis because there was no Glaive or Zipnix due to their burnout and them having a break, etc. By the way, that's the reason why you even needed players like Bubzkji and Astralis. So what happened, right? Well, along he came and he played 4 best-of-3 series after joining the team initially. 8 maps of play, played on Dust 2, Inferno, Train and Nuke, and he won all 4 of the first maps, 2-0 best-of-3 series against Fnatic and Vitality. He lost the last 4 of those, best-of-3s against NIP and Complexity, and I think Cologne and ESL Pro League beginning, respectively. And over this time span, despite being used for, 8 maps, he wasn't used for something like 26 best-of-3s. I think it was something like 72 maps of play over this initial period. So that was like the next 10 best-of-3s and 30 maps weren't using him. Glaive returned around 3rd of September, just takes Bubzkji's spot straight away, which means that choosing between him and Esatag, they chose to keep Esatag in the lineup. He only played the first series of ESL Pro League Season 12. They played all the other series without him, and they even won the fucking league without him and the title without him, and he was just sat on the bench watching him. Now listen, role-wise, it makes sense to potentially replace Zipnix with Esatag, and obviously you need a real in-game leader, so at that point in time Bubzkji has to go up the lineup. In theory, right, Zipnix for Esatag's more reasonable replacement. Meanwhile, you'd think traditionally Bubzkji should probably be more like Dupree, maybe in some universe Magisk if he has the right role set up, but I don't think he's played enough in his career to do that necessarily. Zipnix himself returned on the 5th of October, the day after the final of ESL Pro League, and Esatag wasn't sold to Cloud9 until the 25th of October, and over this period of time, they played 3 3 whole tournaments without Bubzkji and all of ESL Pro League minus that first series. So they played almost all of ESL Pro League. They played the Blast Fall series and they played IEM Beijing Haidan EU. These are some of the most important tournaments of that time period. They just don't play Bubzkji at all in the server, and he's just watching the games like the rest of us are on the fucking stream, presumably. So then Essetag leaves, and now Astralis only has 6 players. They have the original 5 that won the 3 majors, and they have Bubzkji. Now, during this time period, Bubzkji plays 8 total maps from then until now, all on Nuke, and as a result, 0 full series himself in the server. So in just over 4 months, he played 8 maps. He won 4, he lost 4. The last 3 he lost in a row, all on Nuke. The last 2 to Na'Vi, and after that, they just didn't play him since then. Now, on the 24th of February this year, he did an interview with HLTV.org, I'll put it in the description, where it's basically about his status in Astralis. He says, and these are quotes, "We had to rethink the whole idea of a 6-man roster. I can now play multiple maps. Maybe not in the IEM Katowice playoffs, but after the playoffs, from Pro League, I think we're going to see me coming in to do some work. Spoiler, hasn't played in Pro League. I think the way we're going to do it now is going to work better for both them and me." Now, over the time period, since Essetag was gone from the team and Bubzkji came back and became just a Nuke player, basically, I think when I looked it up, this is all by eye, the team had played something like 66 maps without him while he played in just 8 maps. Now, over the 8+ months Bubzkji has been in Astralis, when they've been claiming they want to do a 6, 7, 10-man roster, he has played 16 maps total, 4 real series, like full series, all early on. The last 8 of those maps, of the 16, were all on Nuke only, and he has in total only ever played something like 4 different maps for Astralis, out of the 7-map pool. He played 1 map total in 2021, we're all over 3 months in, guys, and when I looked it up, again by eye, over the entire time Astralis has had Bubzkji, they played him in 16 maps, but they have themselves played something mad, like 138 maps without Bubzkji. Again, someone correct me if I'm wrong on that detail. Now, for context, because I'm obviously just throwing a bunch of numbers at you here, let's put it in some context. You might remember that North American player was a rising talent himself in early 2020, right? He was in Gen G, he won that DreamHack Open over in North America, he was the MVP of it. Now, since Bubzkji has joined Astralis, has played himself 19 maps of official Counter-Strike. Punchline? By the way, remember, Bubzkji's played 16. Went to Valorant in early October, and his last map in CSGO was on the 22nd of September, and he has still, to this day, played more maps in the time span that Bubzkji joined Astralis. And yet, Bubzkji's supposed to be a part of Astralis. What about the other 6th man, though? Well, everyone knows Vitality did for real what Astralis claimed to and used Nevera as a real 6th man, and he played something like 35 maps in over 3 months. Na'Vi, with Bit coming in, it's only basically from this year, in the last 2+ months, has played 12 maps. Bubzkji's only played 16 total in way more time, like, 8+ months. So, quite frankly, and it's what I actually predicted before, I don't think Astralis was genuine about wanting to use him as a real player who could ever break into the starting lineup, or even as a true 6th man. Half of his play came when they needed him to have 5 players in the server. Since then, he was used on 1 map, Nuke, which looked like token usage to at least say they're using him and still get some of the benefits media-wise from using him. But the problem is, it wasn't even solid logic like when Vitality used Nevera to use Bubzkji on Nuke, because replacing Zipnix, listen, Bubzkji is no Zipnix, that's one thing for sure. Essetag at least makes sense for the role, but Essetag was gone. Bubzkji is nowhere near what a Zipnix is, a supportive element, clutch player, very intelligent game sense, but no, he's not all those things. And what's one of Zipnix's best maps of all time, and Astralis' best map of all time? Probably Nuke, right? And you're going to replace him on that map, even though, yes, I get it, Zipnix was coming back from his break. I'll even say, quite frankly, I forget which one it is. It might even have been the IEM. I actually think one of those series, the one where they got 2-0 by Na'Vi, they actually probably lost that series in large part because of that Nuke game that Bubzkji played, and he wasn't particularly good on it. And guess what? If you know Na'Vi's a team that aren't going to 2-0 you very often. So if you can just get them to that 3rd map and keep it close and make them think, a lot of people have beaten Na'Vi and seen Na'Vi lose, no matter how simple Electronic and the others in the team play. play. So quite frankly, I think he was just brought to the team, Bubzkji, to motivate Glaive and Zipniks to return from their break, to have players to use in the service. You don't have to keep using Snappy and Yugi and look like an absolute joke and have Device trying to get me fired from fucking gigs. And when they then were also, like some of the rumours go, maybe talking to other organisations during 2020, it also either suggests to them, if you do go elsewhere, we've got someone to replace you, and if you don't, there's someone already in the starting spot anyway, so maybe you should come back and start playing again if you're not going to go elsewhere. Because, I mean, I've alluded to it earlier, those players, the entire team could have gone elsewhere, individual players could have gone elsewhere. They haven't used him like Vitality and Na'Vi have, who, by the way, are fellow title contenders going for championships and winning championships like Astralis do, who really do use their six man when they had them, at least before the Valve rule changes happened. I think they just brought in Bubzkji and the like to make this narrative about being an innovative organisation, to get mainstream press from people who don't know anything about it, to have people in the community discuss it endlessly on podcasts as though they're actually doing it, talking about what a great org they have and coaching staff and the infrastructure and how they're doing it and all. Even though they were never doing it like Vitality and even Na'Vi appear to be at this point in time. I don't think they ever actually genuinely... He was just there, essentially, I would suggest, to help pump up the public image and therefore, indirectly, the stock price. I don't think they actually want to use him now, develop him now, or ever have him part of their future unless one of the big five leaves the team willingly or is sold for a lot of money. But quite frankly, I've heard could already have sold him. A bunch of teams I heard had inquired, but I heard that they asked for silly money. I'm talking like Nico buyout level of money. That's the sort of money they want for this guy because that's what he's there for. They got him cheap from a shitty buyout from Mad Lions, and now he's here to be sold for much, much more and be flipped by the org that was asking League of Legends players to take a 30% pay cut and CSGO pros to take a 30% pay cut last year, but then signing more players and giving them salary. Teams I've heard basically have had Bubzkji potentially shopped him, or they've gone to talk about Bubzkji signing with them, and it's on the table if the numbers met. And quite frankly, I've even heard the Astralis org has looked at and talked to potentially adding other players. So the sad thing for me is that Bubzkji himself seems way too deluded that he actually believes this shit. He believes what Astralis tells him. He wants the dream to be real, that he's really in Astralis and they're trying to train him up and he's gaining experience from playing with them. And eventually he's going to break in a lineup. He's initially going to be a sixth man, and then he's going to be a real player. One day maybe he'll be winning. Listen, even if the dream comes true in the sense that you are an actual starter for Astralis, Bubzkji, my dude, it won't be this Astralis. It won't be the Astralis you want. It'll be a totally different team. It'll be closer to a heroic than it will be to an Astralis. Bad news for you, mate, there. I'm just going to have to tell you straight up based on how I see the circumstances behind the scenes. I've told you before, the whole team could have been gone from Astralis. For real, if someone else had accepted an offer. Zipniks could individually have already gone to a team like Cloud9 for Megabucks. These players, it's not necessarily about Astralis. That's why the Astralis org element is a lot of moving pieces, and they're trying to figure out this and whack-a-mole here and put something there and replace something there. And it's not a coherent plan like they try to make out in the media. If you are Astralis, by the way, if the current five, the classic five, could play still and want to, why would you bring Bubzkji in? Why would you even play him in the game? Like, as I've said, I think they potentially threw a tournament by playing him, even though, by the way, fair play to them, they won some tournaments while also playing him and won some big series while playing him, even when they lost some of the map occasionally. Are you really going to abandon the idea that if we go offline and the next major comes, that original five get to go for 4 in a row? You're just going to abandon that to play Bubzkji, who you don't even play now online. Now, in terms of even player performance, it's Magisk who has the individual issues, especially he's not IGL anymore. But the problem is it's Dupree that would be the role fit for Bubzkji, right? If anything, he's one of the better players in Astralis. So it ain't going to happen, right? And also, why would they be looking for another player if they want you in the lineup, Bubzkji, when you're already there and you've already played with them and you're on scrim with them and talked to them and gained the experience and done all these interviews? Why would they do that, mate? What would the point be at that point in time? Like, it doesn't even make sense, really, does it? It's just a silly logic to apply. I even think overall, like, look at Bubzkji's side of it. He's wasting his talent. He could have developed into maybe a top 10, 20 player of the year if he'd had more time that year and more playing time, and he'd actually been able to battle in the top tier 1 competitions and prove himself. He has so much more to learn. He has so much more experience to gain, but from playing the fucking game at the top level, I think actually his skills have atrophied since he's been in this team. He's not playing, so his match fitness has gone to shit. Even on Nuke, he went to shit by the end. What is he learning in these scrims? How often does he scrim? In what way do they use him in the scrims? Does he just get to listen to people? Do they actually coach him directly? Who the fuck fuck knows? Doesn't really seem relevant, quite frankly, because this guy's just getting absolutely tooled by the Astralis org, and I don't think it's until either big names go and he just happens to be used as a pawn as a replacement, or they just sell him for big money to anyone, that he'll ever get it through his brain because he wants the dream to be real, sadly. This video was kindly supported by Eddie, Lager15, Pronogo, Shenlong, Zachary Carter, Alexander Rao, Andreas Kroknes, Animosity, Dean Tanglis, ErikHillestad, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and as always, special thanks to my dude, Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest? Would you like to ask a question in one of those monthly AMA videos I do? Do you want teasers on who the upcoming guests are? Or maybe you want to take part in a discussion about esports with moi? Well, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.